Most people think they know what shadow work island. The phrase gets tossed around on social media, in self-help books, even in spiritual circles. But here's the unsettling truth. Much of what you've heard about the shadow is wrong. Some say the shadow is only the dark side of your personality. Others picture it as a one-time purge, like cleaning out a messy closet. Some even claim you can simply manifest it away, as if centuries of unconscious patterns could dissolve with one bright affirmation. But let me ask you this. If it were that simple, why do the same arguments repeat in your relationships? Why do hidden fears keep undercutting your confidence, no matter how many motivational quotes you read? Why do painful patterns echo through families, through generations, through entire cultures? Carl Jung warned us, what we ignore in ourselves never disappears. It comes back projected onto others, multiplied, and often far more destructive. That's why shadow work isn't a hashtag trend. It isn't a weekend ritual. It's the most essential inner journey you will ever face. And here's the twist. Much of what we believe about shadow work is actually myth, comforting stories we tell ourselves, so we don't have to go deeper. But those myths keep us stuck, blind to the truths that could set us free. In this journey, we'll break down the 10 biggest myths about shadow work one by one through a Jungian lens. Some of them will surprise you. Some may sting. And the last myth? It's the one Jung himself feared most. The illusion that can quietly sabotage your entire journey of self-discovery. So, stay with me until the end. Because if you recognize even one of these myths in your own life, you'll begin to see the shadow not as an enemy to destroy, but as the missing piece that can make you whole. Before we step into the myths, let's pause for a clear picture. What exactly is shadow work? And why does it matter so much right now, in your daily life? Carl Jung used the word shadow to describe the parts of ourselves we reject, repress, or deny. These aren't always bad traits. They can be impulses, desires, even strengths that didn't fit the image we wanted to show the world. As children, maybe we were told not to cry, so we buried our vulnerability. Or maybe we were punished for being too bold, so we hid away our natural confidence. Over time, all those unaccepted pieces form the shadow. Here's the paradox. The shadow never disappears. It lives in the unconscious, shaping behavior, coloring emotions, slipping into relationships. You may think you're in control, but the shadow shows up in jealousy you can't explain, in anger that bursts out of nowhere, in shame that silences you when you most need to speak. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That's why shadow work matters. It's about reclaiming your life from the forces inside you that stay unseen. But here's where confusion begins. Lately, shadow work has become a buzzword. It's everywhere: Instagram posts, TikTok trends, pop psychology blogs. Curiosity about inner work is great, but this wave has also brought distortions, half-truths, simplifications that sound comforting but can mislead. Think about it. If you begin shadow work while believing a myth, you might avoid the real work. You might feel you're doing it right while only scratching the surface. Or worse, you might deepen your wounds while thinking you're healing. That's why in this journey we'll do two things. First, expose the myths. I'll name the common misconceptions you've likely seen or maybe even believed yourself. Second, reveal the truth. We'll reconnect with Jung's insights and bring them into modern life. Not in abstract or academic terms, but in ways that touch everyday reality, your relationships, your work, your sense of self. And let's be clear, this isn't about shaming yourself for believing myths. Every one of us begins with misunderstandings. That's part of being human. The power lies in seeing more clearly, in facing what's uncomfortable. So as we move through these 10 myths, notice what stirs resistance in you. Notice where you think, "That's me." That recognition isn't failure. It's the first step toward transformation. By the end, you won't just know what shadow work is not. You'll carry a clearer, more grounded sense of what it truly island. And that shift can change the way you see yourself forever. Picture this. You're walking through your house late in the evening. The lights are off. The rooms you know so well suddenly feel different. The hallway looks longer. A chair in the corner takes the shape of a looming figure. Shadows stretch across the walls, and your mind begins to invent stories. But here's the truth. Nothing in the house has actually changed. The furniture is the same. The walls haven't moved. Only the absence of light distorts your perception. That's exactly how the shadow works inside us. The parts we push into darkness don't disappear. They wait, silent, in the corners of the psyche. And when life gets stressful, when relationships press our buttons, those hidden parts spill outward just like monsters we imagine in a dark room. Jung often compared the shadow to the figure trailing behind us. At noon, when the sun is straight above, you barely notice it. But as the light shifts, the shadow lengthens, stretches, sometimes even frightens you. It isn't the shadow itself that's dangerous. It's our refusal to recognize it as part of us. Think about everyday life. Maybe at work you feel irritated by a colleague. You say, "She's arrogant. She's so full of herself." But what if that irritation is your own confidence, buried long ago because you were told it was wrong to shine too brightly? The colleague becomes a mirror, reflecting back a piece of you that's been pushed into the dark. The monster you see is not her. It's the unclaimed part of yourself. Or maybe you're scrolling on social media. You feel a stab of jealousy at someone's success. You tell yourself, they don't deserve it. But underneath, the shadow whispers. You want to be seen. You want recognition. But you're afraid to admit it. The shadow shows up in the places we least want to look. And when we avoid it, we live in illusions, just like mistaking a chair for a threatening figure. This is why myths about shadow work are so powerful. They act like blindfolds. They trick us into believing we understand, when in reality, we're still fumbling in the dark. The good news? The moment you find the courage to flip on the light, the monsters vanish. You realize it was only a hallway, a chair, your own mind filling the gaps. In the same way, when you face the shadow, you see that what you feared was never an enemy. It was a part of you wounded, hidden, waiting to be welcomed home. Shadow work isn't about fighting darkness. It's about learning to see, to shine light into the corners of your psyche, to discover that the parts you rejected may hold exactly what you've been missing: creativity, confidence, emotional depth, resilience. This is why we must clear away the myths. Because if you think shadow work is just getting rid of bad traits, you'll miss the treasures hiding in the dark. If you think it's a quick fix, you'll quit before the healing begins. And if you expect it to be painless, you'll never turn the light on at all. So let's walk forward together. In the next part, we'll uncover the first 3 myths of shadow work and explore the truths behind them. Let's begin with the first misunderstanding. Many people think the shadow is nothing but evil, ugly, destructive. Yes, it does hold anger, jealousy, envy, shame. But that's only half the story. The shadow also hides your forgotten strengths, the parts of you that were pushed away because they didn't fit the role you thought you had to play. Maybe you silenced your ambition because you were told to be humble. Maybe you buried your sensitivity because the world told you to toughen up. Those too live in the shadow. Jung reminded us, the shadow is not purely negative. It's a container for both what we despise and what we secretly need. When you see it only as the dark side, you stay stuck in fear. And fear blinds you to the very gifts that could set you free. So here's something to try. Take a journal and ask yourself, what positive traits have I been afraid to show? Maybe you admire someone's creativity, but tell yourself, I'm not artistic. That admiration could be pointing you back to a hidden part of your own shadow, waiting for expression. Now, the second myth. Believing shadow work means eliminating the shadow. People say, I just need to get rid of my jealousy, my anger, my fear. But Jung would warn you, anything you try to cut out only grows stronger. The unconscious doesn't vanish, it compensates. Repression leads to projection, and projection multiplies conflict in the outer world. The goal isn't elimination, it's integration. Think of a painting. If you erase one color completely, the picture becomes flat, lifeless. The painting needs contrast to come alive. Your psyche is the same. It doesn't need perfection. It needs wholeness. Integration means bringing those rejected parts into dialogue with your conscious self, not acting them out blindly, but not pretending they don't exist either. You might ask yourself, what emotion do I label as bad? Instead of asking, how do I get rid of it? Try asking, what is this emotion trying to tell me? Anger may be calling for boundaries. Envy might reveal a hidden desire. Fear could be pointing you toward growth. Now, the third myth. Shadow work is quick and easy. Scroll through social media and you'll see posts promising 5-minute shadow work journals or one exercise to heal forever, as if centuries of unconscious patterns could unravel in a single weekend. But shadow work isn't a quick fix. It's a lifelong dialogue with your unconscious. It often feels like peeling an onion. Each layer reveals another. You integrate one piece. Then you discover a deeper layer beneath it. This doesn't mean the process is hopeless. On the contrary, it means shadow work grows with you. The shadow you face in your 20s isn't the same one you'll meet in midlife. And the work you do today plants seeds for the person you'll become tomorrow. The myth of a quick cure leaves people impatient or discouraged, believing they've failed when the shadow reappears. In truth, coming back to the work is a sign of growth, not failure. So, here's a practice. Set aside 10 minutes each week for reflection. Ask yourself, where did my shadow show up this week? Was it in a sharp reaction, a pang of envy, a sudden burst of defensiveness? Track it gently, like watching weather patterns. Over time, you'll see cycles, lessons, and progress that no one-time fix could ever give you. So there we have it, the first 3 myths. The shadow is not only negative, it cannot be erased, and it cannot be rushed. Clearing these illusions opens the way for deeper truths, because the next myths are subtler. They touch the very way we see ourselves, our past, and the people around us. Let's move to the next misunderstanding. Many believe shadow work is only about the past. They imagine it's all about digging through childhood memories, revisiting old traumas, analyzing wounds from long ago. Yes, the shadow often begins there, shaped by early rejection, shame, unmet needs. But it doesn't stay locked in the past. The shadow lives here and now. It shows up in how you react to your boss's criticism, in how you shrink in social settings, in how you argue with your partner over the same issues again and again. Every present-day trigger is the shadow knocking, asking to be seen. If you focus only on the past, you risk getting trapped in endless analysis, always digging but never applying the insight to your life today. Jung reminded us that true growth happens in the present moment by noticing how unconscious patterns shape your choices right now. Next time you feel a strong reaction, anger, envy, defensiveness, pause. Ask yourself, what part of me is this pointing to? Not, what happened to me as a child, but what's happening in me right now? That shift brings shadow work into real time, where transformation is possible. Now, the 5th myth. Shadow work is only for broken people. This is one of the most harmful ideas, because every human being has a shadow. Even the healthiest, most successful, most put-together person carries unconscious material. In fact, the more polished someone appears, the more likely it is they have hidden shadows tucked away. Shadow work isn't punishment. It isn't therapy just for the wounded. It's the path to wholeness. Without it, even the strongest personality remains incomplete, like a painting missing half its colors. Think of it this way. Refusing shadow work because you feel fine is like refusing exercise because you're not sick. You might not feel pain now, but neglect always shows up later. Shadow work is maintenance for the soul. It's honesty, humility, and growth. So, ask yourself, if everyone has a shadow, what might mine look like? Write down qualities, impulses, or desires you rarely admit. Seeing this as universal, not as proof of being broken, brings compassion and lightness to the process. Now, the 6th myth. Shadow work is just about noticing your triggers. It's true. The shadow shows itself in what irritates, offends, unsettles us. But stopping at noticing is incomplete. Awareness is the first step, not the last. Imagine smelling smoke in your house. Would you say, "Oh, there's smoke," and walk away? Of course not, you'd look for the fire. In the same way, noticing a trigger should lead you deeper. Ask, why does this bother me so much? What part of myself am I seeing in them? What story am I telling about myself right now? If you stop at labeling, you risk shallow awareness. You might say, "That's my shadow," but never touch the real work of integration. Integration means sitting with the discomfort, tracing it back to the part of you that was rejected, and then slowly letting that part back into awareness. It isn't clean, it isn't quick, but it is real. So here's a simple practice. Next time you're triggered, don't stop at the surface. Write down the situation. Write the exact emotion you felt. Write the story you told yourself about it. Then ask, is there a part of me I'm refusing to acknowledge here? That's where the work begins. By exposing these 3 myths, things get clearer. Shadow work isn't just about the past, it's alive in the present. It isn't only for broken people, it's for everyone. And it isn't just about spotting triggers, it's about integrating what those triggers reveal. But we're not done. The next illusions are trickier. They touch spirituality, positivity, even morality. And these can be the hardest myths to let go of. Many people avoid shadow work because they think it's only heavy, painful, draining. Yes, facing repressed parts can stir tears and discomfort. Old wounds can resurface. But here's the forgotten truth. The shadow doesn't only hide pain, it also hides joy, creativity, vitality. Imagine a locked box in your basement. Yes, it has dust and cobwebs, but it also contains long-lost treasures. That's how shadow work often feels. You uncover not only sorrow, but also gifts you didn't know you had. When you integrate the shadow, it doesn't drain you. It frees up the energy you once spent repressing parts of yourself. And that energy comes back as authentic power. Ask yourself, what strengths or passions have I buried because I thought they were too much? Exploring those answers can feel not heavy, but liberating. Now let's face another myth, that shadow work is the same as positive thinking. In the self-help world, it's easy to bypass the shadow with affirmations. But Jung was clear, light without darkness is incomplete. Telling yourself, I am only love and light, may comfort you for a moment. But every time you deny anger, envy, or fear in the name of positivity, you push those emotions deeper underground. Shadow work doesn't cancel positivity, it strengthens it. When you accept the whole of yourself, your affirmations stop being fragile hopes and become grounded truths. So, next time you repeat an affirmation, add a balancing phrase. Instead of, I am confident, try, I am learning to embrace my confidence even when doubt shows up. That honors both sides, making your positivity real, not forced. Now, the 9th myth, that shadow work is dangerous or immoral. Some worry that exploring the shadow will unleash destructive behavior, that by admitting darker impulses, they'll lose control. But repression, not awareness, is what makes impulses dangerous. Jung taught that what stays unconscious erupts in distorted ways through projection, compulsions, even harm. Bringing these parts into consciousness gives you choice. You're no longer ruled by blind forces. Think of driving a car. Would you rather drive with eyes open or cover the windshield because you're afraid of what you might see? Awareness is not the danger, denial is. So ask yourself, what do I fear will happen if I face my shadow honestly? Write it down. Then ask, is this fear based in reality or in the false belief that repression equals control? Finally, the 10th myth. Once you do shadow work, you're done. This is perhaps the most subtle, most dangerous illusion. The idea that one day you'll be healed, the shadow gone forever, and you'll live in perfect clarity. But as long as you're human, you'll always have a shadow. Every new stage of life brings fresh challenges, fresh projections, fresh parts of yourself to face. The goal isn't to finish. The goal is to continue. Shadow work is an ongoing relationship with your unconscious. A dialogue that lasts a lifetime, and that's not bad news. It means you're always growing, always expanding, always discovering more of who you really are. So instead of asking, when will I be done? Try asking, how can I stay open to the next layer of my shadow? When you make peace with the process itself becomes wisdom. Now, with these final myths exposed, the picture is clearer. Shadow work is not negative, it's liberating. Not bypassed by positivity, it's deepened through honesty. Not dangerous, it's empowering. And never finished, because life itself is a journey of integration. The question is, what do we do with this deeper understanding? That's what we'll reflect on next. Carl Jung once said, One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This line captures the heart of shadow work. It isn't about escaping into light. It's about turning toward what we fear within ourselves. Look at the world we live in today. We are obsessed with performance. We curate highlight reels on social media. We polish our image at work. Even spirituality can become a mask of endless love and light. And beneath all that, the shadow grows restless. Every insecurity we refuse to face leaks into our interactions. Every denied desire hides beneath envy. Every avoided truth becomes a silent weight we carry. Jung believed that the fate of the individual and the fate of the collective are intertwined. When individuals repress their shadows, entire societies project those shadows onto others, onto different nations, groups, or communities. History is filled with wars, persecutions, and conflicts, not born of real difference, but of unconscious projection. This is why shadow work isn't just personal growth. It's also a responsibility, because the work you do inside yourself ripples outward. The anger you integrate is anger you no longer dump on your partner or your children. The fear you face is fear you no longer project onto strangers. The jealousy you claim as your own is jealousy you no longer disguise as judgment. To integrate the shadow is to break cycles, not only for yourself, but for your relationships, your community, even generations to come. And here's the paradox. The more you embrace your darkness, the more authentic your light becomes. Without facing the shadow, positivity stays fragile, spirituality feels shallow, and love remains conditional. With the shadow integrated, positivity is grounded, spirituality is embodied, and love becomes real. Think of wholeness like a mandala, one of Jung's favorite symbols. A mandala holds opposites, light and dark, chaos and order, wound and healing woven into balance. That's the invitation of shadow work, not perfection, not purity, but completeness. So when you hear the myths, the shadow is only evil, shadow work is quick, it's just for broken people, remember, those are illusions that keep us divided. The truth is harder, but far more freeing. The shadow is part of you, and without it, you cannot be whole. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, what if your darkest emotions were not enemies, but messengers? What if your struggles weren't proof of failure, but invitations to grow? What if integration, not avoidance, was the real path to freedom? Jung warned that the greatest danger is not the shadow itself, but our refusal to face it. And the greatest gift is not conquering the shadow, but learning to walk with it, to listen, to discover the wisdom it carries. Shadow work is, at its core, an act of courage. Personal, yes, but also collective. Because every step you take into your own darkness brings more consciousness into the world. And that consciousness is exactly what humanity needs most. We've walked together through 10 of the biggest myths about shadow work. And along the way, we've seen how each one keeps us from the real journey. Believing the shadow is only negative blinds us to hidden gifts. Trying to erase it only makes it stronger. Hoping for a quick fix leaves us frustrated. Thinking it's just about the past, or only for broken people, limits who dares to engage. Stopping at triggers keeps us shallow. Calling it draining, bypassing it with positivity, fearing it as immoral, or imagining it can one day be finished, each of these illusions blocks wholeness. The truth is simpler and deeper. The shadow is not your enemy. It is the unseen partner in your journey toward becoming whole. When you face the shadow, you reclaim your power. When you listen to it, you discover truths no outside validation can give. And when you integrate it, you step into a fuller life, one that includes both light and dark, strength and vulnerability, joy and sorrow. Think of your life as a story. Without conflict, without challenge, the story is flat, forgettable. But when you weave in the shadow, your story gains depth, meaning, authenticity. You stop pretending to be only the hero. You embrace the whole cast of characters within you. That's the essence of shadow work. Not perfection, not quick solutions, but a lifelong dialogue with the unconscious. A journey where each step makes you more human, more grounded, more whole. So here's a gentle invitation. Take one myth from today's journey that struck you the most. Write it down. Reflect on how it shaped your view of yourself. Then replace it with the truth you've discovered here. Even one small act of awareness can change the way you see yourself and the people around you. And remember, you don't have to do it all at once. Shadow work isn't a sprint. It's a path walked slowly, one insight, one practice, one act of courage at a time. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which myth did you once believe? Which truth felt most powerful today? Share your thoughts. Your story might be the very message someone else needs to hear. And if you want more explorations into Jungian psychology, shadow work, and the path of integration, make sure to subscribe and stay connected. Together, we can bring more light into the world, not by denying the dark, but by embracing it. So, until next time, remember this: the shadow you fear is not against you. It's the missing piece that makes you whole.